Dude, the Bagman, man, where do you want us to go?
Yo soy abogado.
Better Call Saul is the best TV show of all time. That's right, you heard me, I think it's somehow even better than Breaking Bad. And not enough people seem to realise this. So today I will be analysing my favourite episode of the series, Bagman. And I shall be using this episode as a vehicle in order to explain the brilliance of the show overall. So with this in mind, there will be spoilers for the first 5 seasons ahead. So if you haven't seen the show yet, you can peek at this video for a little bit longer, but I'd advise leaving soon and coming back later. But with that being said, and without further ado, let's jump right into this. At around the midpoint of Season 4, we begin to see the construction of Gus Fring's Super Meth Lab, which will later become that iconic set piece in Breaking Bad that we all know and love. However, a fellow associate of the drug cartel, who goes by Lalo Salamanca, has caught wind of this operation and decides to go digging. Now this is supposed to be a super undercover operation because cooking meth is not legal, kids, but the lead engineer coordinating this whole construction can no longer endure the isolation that him and his colleagues must maintain, so he decides to escape the facility, and thus raises alarms for Gus Fring's men, especially Mr. Mike Ehrmantraut. And Lalo sneakily joins this pursuit to find out what's happening before long, and if Lalo finds out what's happening, Gus Fring's meth lab will be gone. So Lalo, through Mike, manages to track this engineer down to a travel agency centre, but this young, innocent employee has to deny Lalo to any information on the whereabouts of past customers, and thus Lalo murders him in cold blood. Now this is where Saul comes into play. Throughout the entire show, even since the first episode, Saul's, shall we say, questionable lawyer practices has always managed to get him involved with the wrong kinds of people, something that shall later be echoed throughout his whole career as a criminal lawyer.
We're done when I say we're done.
And each criminal that he chooses to defend makes him in turn question his morality and just how far he will go before it's already too late. But for now, he's caught between a rock and a hard place. Caught between a mineral and a hard place. And whether he likes it or not, he's too far in the game to get out now.
For when you figure out you're in the game.
I'm not in the game, I promise.
It's not about what you want. When you're in, you're in.
And now just 2 big things are sticking out in Saul's mind. Those 2 big things, of course, being the 2 bags of money that account for $7 million that shall be utilised to bail out Lalo. So, now that I've caught you up to speed, Bagman begins with 2 workers of the cartel cleaning bloodstains out of a wrecked car. Much like that notorious scene from Pulp Fiction, this too has a very comedic edge. The upbeat Mexican music and the workers proceeding to flick blood at each other gives off a very comedic tone, but also in a very dark way, as it clearly establishes that the workers being able to mess around whilst dealing with a task like this tells us that this isn't a first occurrence, and obviously isn't something that phases them one bit. However, that balance of comedy and darkness sharply transitions into pure darkness as the Salamanca twins pull up at the facility. Now don't worry, we'll get onto the twins in just a second, because they are extremely effective characters. And I've got a little tangent prepared. But for now, they go inside, past the workers, and bag up the $7 million. We then snap to the iconic intro that I loved replicating for this video. And the scene that follows is of Lalo and Saul discussing the pickup point for the money. And just as Saul is about to walk away...
100,000?
Dollars?
That's the price.
Done.
And oh my, is it amazing just how quickly people's motivations change once there's a bag of money in the equation.
You know, I don't exactly know how to feel about all this.
For real, yo. The whole thing felt kind of shady, you know, like morality-wise.
How do you feel now?
Better.
Yeah, definitely improving.
But even pushing aside the potential danger for just a second, Saul explaining this to his wife Kim is going to be quite a challenge on its own.
How much?
7
$7,000.
million.
7 million?
Yeah.
You're going to pick up $7 million of cartel money?
I know what you're thinking, but it's safe. Completely. It's just a quick drive down by the border.
The
I'll
border?
be right back.
Jimmy, you are an attorney, not a bagman.
Welp, here he is, right next to his bright yellow Suzuki Esteem. And it's not after too long until we see another car approaching. Now I'm really glad that the Salamanca twins were the characters chosen to deliver the bags of money.
Abogado, a lawyer. I'll just take these back to Lalo. You guys are just gonna just go? Oh, that'll work.
Their presence throughout both shows has always been extremely intimidating. The pair are very stoic, and their lack of dialogue only exemplifies that spine-chilling appearance. Throw in the eerie soundtrack and an axe, and it becomes very clear that the twins are not individuals you want to get on the wrong side of. And it's interesting when you contrast this with Walter White, and more specifically, his Heisenberg persona. Because Walt is physically incompetent, and all of his smart executions exclusively rely on his knowledge of science and the way he utilizes all of his creations. However, contrary to the twins, Walter speaks a lot, and that's where his intimidation spawns from.
I am the danger.
I'm the cook. I'm the man who killed Gus Fring.
Rather than demonstrating a dangerous presence, Walt instead uses very confident language and speech patterns to assert his dominance, and both of these traits can be very impactful depending on the given situation. But Saul, bless him, fits into neither of these categories. Saul is shown on multiple occasions to crumble and cave into other characters out of fear for them. Saul is always reliant on the henchmen around him to deal with the more confrontational tasks. Saul himself is an extremely intelligent individual, who always has various tricks up his sleeve. But in this situation, it's very clear to see just how out of his element he really is. And a brilliant contrast in characters has always been a concept that Vince Gilligan has excelled at delivering. Every single character in both shows has their own unique set of skills and motivations, and how they choose to utilize these skills and how far they are willing to push these motivations tells us a lot about their character. And when the characters are all so interconnected, especially in an episode like this, it can cause for some intriguing conflict. But for now, conflict is not a problem, because Saul puts the money in the boot of his car and happily drives away. An easy day's work. Except... oh dear. No communication is exchanged between Saul and the Colombian gang, as the message is pretty clear. No witness can be left behind.
Enemigo del cartel! Enemigo del cartel! No!
And of course everyone, including Saul, immediately takes evasive action. And just... wow. is this action scene phenomenal.
I don't want to oversell it, but I think it might be the greatest 60 seconds in the history of television.
All of the shots of the Colombian members are static, giving off the vibe that they are professional, they are accurate, they are deadly, but still no match for the mysterious sniper. On the contrary, all of the shots of Saul consist of close-up reactions, and everything witnessed from his POV is all done in shaky cam. These are all brilliant yet simple filmmaking techniques to demonstrate the power levels of our characters. The Colombian gang with their confidence, and Saul with his squirminess. Just an all-round incredibly effective scene. But the action is far from over as one of the members gets away, and all seems even more hopeless for Saul. That is until our expert sniper reveals himself. And what do you know, it's good old Mike Ehrmantraut. Mike checks to see if Saul is okay, and well, physically he's fine, not a scratch on him, but mentally there's a lot to process. Mike grabs the money and the two of them are on the road again. Well, for a little bit. Well, for around 6 to 7 miles to be more specific. Because would you believe it, there's now problems with the car.
I'm just having a rough time. I just need a break. Just one break.
So they must ditch the car. Mike takes off the number plate to ensure that the event won't be traced back to Saul, and he also takes out the petrol cap, and we see this very subtle shot of Mike placing it inside his bag, alongside his tracking device, which has been thoroughly utilised throughout the show, and we have the hindsight of its effective use in Breaking Bad as well. And I am just so glad that Vince Gilligan included this shot, because it clears up any potential plot contrivance in the story. It's very important for Mike to be here, because even though the orchestrated Colombian gang attack is in theory doing Gus a favour by not letting the bail money reach Lalo, Gus feels that the best solution is for Lalo to actually be bailed out and dealt with in a different manner. Because even from prison, Lalo is still managing to cook up a lot of trouble for Gus. So yeah, Mike being here to protect Saul and fulfill Gus Fring's needs is integral to the plot. However, the writers ensure that everything in the plot lines up and makes complete sense for him to be in that position, with the superb direction filling in the rest of the gaps. And this is just one of many cases throughout the show where I have an undying appreciation for just how airtight and interconnected everything feels. Just to really hammer home this point, another example of something that on the surface may seem like a small detail but really goes a long way for the story is in the episode Slip, where Nacho Varga needs to slip a tube of pills, which he's tampered with, into Don Hector's jacket. But oh no, how can we know for certain that everything will go according to Nacho's plan? I mean, his whole plan will go out the window if Don Hector decides to wear his jacket. Well, to ensure that any question like this, no matter how small, gets cleared up, the episode shows Nacho damaging the air cooling system above the restaurant where Don Hector conducts his business. With the air conditioning no longer working, this guarantees that Hector will take off his jacket, as the heat in the room will be insufferable. With his jacket being off, this means that Nacho is able to remove the regular pills and then gracefully slip the other pills that he's tampered with into the pocket of Hector's jacket. All done without any question of a plot contrivance. And the attention to detail like this is one of many reasons why I have so much respect for all of the writers and directors behind Better Call Saul. And with all the garbage mainstream content being produced nowadays, I think the entertainment industry ought to take notes from this show. So anyway, let's get back on track. Or rather, off track, because that's exactly what Mike and Saul need to do, as the Colombian gang member that escaped is still on the loose. So staying off the road and moving across desert terrain is their best bet. And with no service to call for help, the two of them must set up camp and sleep the night. When the night eventually falls, there's a really interesting conversation that arises.
I should have been home hours ago. This'll be tearing her up.
Oh, she's just gonna think you're out catting around.
No, she won't. She's gonna think I'm chopped to pieces, dead in some ditch.
And why is she gonna think that? You saying she knows what you're doing?
Not, the details. Just she knows I'm picking up money down by the border, that's all.
And what's your wife gonna do with this information, do you think? Call the cops?
No. No, she's not doing any of that, okay? She knows better. She's just gonna be scared out of her mind is all.
She knows. She's in the game now.
What? No, she's not in the game. I just told her the truth. A little slice of the truth. That's all.
And whilst honesty is a very good trait to have, Mike is absolutely correct here. It's been presented multiple times in this show alongside the hindsight of Breaking Bad that letting others in on your criminal activities may come as a shock at first, but then they quickly prove to be beneficial. But if they end up getting too involved and they start getting introduced to the wrong kinds of people, things will eventually come caving in. It's an impactful way of showing the consequences of joining the game. But after that fruitful discussion, the boys hit the hay. Mike offers Saul a space blanket for warmth, and for obvious personal reasons, he declines. We then transition over to the next day, and yeah, Mike has already been proven right. But the thing is, I love Kim Wexler. I admire her dedication to what she does, and how, no matter what, she will always play by the rules. However, Saul can undeniably be a bad influence on her. She's always made it very clear that she doesn't approve of his methods, and despite being in a relationship, well, married even, she's also made it clear that the two need their distance, a firm divide. But when Saul consistently gets backed into a corner, Kim feels the obligation to step in.
Your man, he's like the cucaracha, you know? Born survivor. If trouble found him, give it a day. If he's alive, he'll show.
And if he's...
Well, then, day's not gonna make a difference, is it? All right, well, nice to meet you, Mrs. Goodman.
After that scene, we then transition back over to Saul and Mike. Walking with a bottle of urine and 2 very heavy bags of money. Across cliff tops, across open desert, and across more desert. Saul clearly doesn't like sand, and who can blame him? It's coarse, rough and irritating, and it gets everywhere. Saul comes up with the idea to start dragging the bags of money. Not a very good idea, but we'll see how this goes. This then causes there to be a hole in the bottom of one of the bags. I think we're getting close to a breaking point now.
Hey! Ah, shit! That's it. I'm done. Done!
Get up.
No! How the hell are you still going?
Because I know why I'm out here. That's how. I have people waiting for me. But I do what I do so they can have a better life. And if I live or if I die, it really doesn't make a difference to me as long as they have what they need. So when it's my time to go, I will go knowing I did everything I could for them.
It's a fantastic character moment for Mike. This show has gone so far at exploring his character, and this feels like a huge payoff. Mike is very notorious for his completely blank expressions and mundane, fed-up reactions to those around him. So when we get these rare moments of pure emotion, it hits so much harder. But there's no time for a quick heart-to-heart, as Mike spots the car in the distance. Mike is willing to play the long game and let him pass, but Saul builds up an extreme amount of courage, wraps himself in the space blanket, and Mike has a completely shocked expression on his face. But he goes with it and proceeds to grab his M40A1 bolt-action sniper rifle. He gets it at the ready. The car clearly spots Saul and starts building up speed whilst heading towards him, the music getting increasingly more tense. First shot is fired, it's a miss. Mike reloads, time is precious, the second shot is fired, and it's a hit. A bloody good one too. The pair are exhausted. Mike checks the vehicle for supplies, but no luck is to be found. Saul caves in and drinks his urine. and it's back on the dusty road they go. And that concludes Bagman. What an out-of-this-world, brilliant episode of television. It pushes all of our characters to their limit, especially for Saul, as we witness the lengths that he goes to. Not even just for the money, but ultimately to prove things to himself. He's not morally righteous, but he's never pretended to be. There are wolves and sheep in this world, and well, I don't know if I'm willing to call Saul a wolf, but this is an extremely important character moment for him, and the whole episode highlights his determination to achieve. I love Better Call Saul. I'm good at analysing it, and making this video really made me feel alive. Thank you for watching.